All right, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and Pakistan Defense Cooperation Pact. Let's get into it first. Why it's important, why do I care? So, a handful of days ago, three countries signed a defense pact. A lot of the language leans heavily on that of NATO, saying especially and particularly that an attack on one is considered an attack on all. But there's a few different nuances to get into here, so let's get into it. All right, so first thing is that all three of these countries obviously have relationships with the U.S. All three of these countries buy military hardware from the U.S., but important to note there's a distinction between the two versus the one of them. So Saudi Arabia and Pakistan don't really have great militaries. Yes, they have and buy a lot of the most advanced military hardware from the U.S., but they don't have a lot of that technical know-how for use, effective use in country. So their militaries require a lot of assistance and hand-holding, for lack of a better word, by the U.S. Now, Turkey is a bit of a different story. They do have a better and more sophisticated technical know-how inside the military. And again, yes, they both buy from the U.S. and have historically bought from Russia. They also have, out of the three, they're the only ones with a strong defense industrial base. It's definitely the region, so it's pretty much just Istanbul and Tehran. You could throw Israel in the mix too. They're definitely trying to ramp that up in light of how dependent they are on the U.S. and obviously, the current president, current administration is trying to wean themselves off because they don't have strategic autonomy. So what does this really mean in practice? Our answer and our analysis is it's really not much, and this is answering the question above. So what are their joint military capabilities? And the answer is really none. They virtually don't exist. A normal military for any single one country, you want all branches of your military to work in tandem, not in silos, right? Now imagine trying to do that, but for all three of these different countries that are spread out by pretty significant geographies. They don't have a history of working together or doing joint military exercises, and if they haven't been at scale. So what does this mean in practical terms? Not much. It's going to take decades to get them on the same page, if at all. You already see some officials starting to pull back and saying like, hey, if one country does invoke this article saying that an attack on one is an attack on all, we're going to have to review that and see what kind of assistance they actually want. So you already have countries sidestepping this. The more important thing is this: setting up the infrastructure for post-U.S. involvement in the region after we are done, whenever that does come to an end, Operation Epic Fury. Yes, we are going to have military presence in Saudi Arabia. That was part of our deal, giving them civil nuclear energy. Look, just for our own strategic interests, we're probably going to maintain presence there, but largely setting up for allies of the U.S. and the West doing more and pulling their own weight, much of what we're asking, like NATO and Europe. So it seems a little far-fetched, but we could see other countries, including Israel, even though there's some beef here with Turkey, joining this infrastructure in the future. Now, it's going to take a long time, and this, I think, is the more important piece here, is that it's setting up the defense and security infrastructure for the next 10 to 20, 30 plus years. Like, subscribe for more.